What's good, y'all, ladies, gentlemen, kings, queens, how y'all doing? Y'all feeling? You know what I'm saying? We here, man. It's been a little minute since I even watched one of these type of videos, so, you know, shit, lock it in with me. Lock it in, alright? I might start doing more of these shits, you know what I'm saying? If you think I should, let me know. Because it's dead been a minute, not dead fucks on them, you know? Shit I watch on my spare time sometimes, you know? Today we got a case so gruesome, Google censored it. Okay. The eyeball killer. Okay. I don't know what we got going, you know what I'm saying? This is brought to us by Disturban, you know what I mean? Anyways, without further ado, glass. Get into the gaming channel, Twitch, TikTok, IG, Twitter, Discord, links in the description, you know? Let's get to it.
Hi, I just want to say thank you to this guy. It really boosted my self-esteem.
Okay, alright.
Subscribe, thank you.
I was like, what the f... Okay. Interesting.
This case takes place in the USA in the years 1988 to 1991. Dallas police officers were called to a quiet residential street. Someone had found a body. Her face was bruised, and it was clear that something horrific had happened to her. However, as they looked closer, one detail made even experienced detectives recoil in shock. Whoever had done this was beyond twisted. In October of 1988, police found the body of 30-year-old Rhonda Bowie in the Oak Cliff area of Dallas. Rhonda was a lady of the night who walked the streets of Oak Cliff. Her life ended violently on a secluded stretch of road. Rhonda had been stabbed more than 20 times in a frenzied attack, and the ferocity of the stabbing suggested uncontrolled rage. However, unlike later victims, she still had her eyes intact. Her murder was brutal and personal, but with no witnesses or immediate leads, the case went pretty much cold. Investigators at the time had no reason to suspect that Rhonda's unsolved killing marked the beginning of a dark spree. 2 years later, on a cold December morning in 1990, another body appeared and reignited fear in Dallas. She was a well-known sex worker who usually walked around Star Motel in Oak Cliff. Mary was known as quiet, gentle, and unassuming. She didn't openly flag down clients from the street. She wore a simple jeans and t-shirt outfit and waited for people to approach her. She kept her night work secret from her elderly parents, even occasionally sleeping at their suburban home without them knowing about her double life. Mary's gentle personality and her vulnerability made what happened to her even more shocking. She was found lying face down in an undeveloped area of South Dallas early in the morning. She was naked except for a t-shirt, which had been pushed over her chest. Mary's face and torso were covered in dark bruises from a vicious beating.
Damn, man.
She had also been shot at close range in the back of her head with a .44 caliber gun execution style. A local resident who discovered her was so disturbed by the sight that he covered up Mary's exposed body with a bedsheet before the police arrived. An experienced homicide detective named John Westphalen was assigned to the case, and he quickly saw the difficulties ahead. Mary's body had clearly been dumped at the lonely site after her murder, meaning that nobody saw where she was actually killed. No murder weapon was found, no fingerprints were discovered, and no obvious suspects emerged. The crime scene was shocking and disturbing enough, but when the medical examiner made a shocking discovery, it made the case even more twisted. The examiner noted needle marks on Mary's arms and a small Playboy bunny tattooed on her chest. She then examined a lethal bullet found in Mary's skull. But then, when this doctor gently opened Mary's eyelids, she gasped at not what she found, but what she didn't find. Mary's eyeballs were missing. Behind the eyelids, the sockets were completely empty. The cuts around each eye were so clean and precise, as if it was performed by someone familiar with ocular anatomy. The surrounding facial tissues and eyelids were relatively untouched. Even experienced investigators were stunned. The Dallas police deliberately kept the details of Mary's missing eyes out of public knowledge at first. This was a unique signature only known to the killer and the investigators. Desperate for leads, Westphalen contacted the FBI's Violent Crime Apprehension Program database searching for answers, but none were found. And Dallas's most deprived killer was only just beginning.
Damn.
On the 10th of February 1991...
I've been watching Criminal Minds, you know what I'm saying, binging that shit. So when I hear signature and all these, you know what I'm saying, these terms used, I don't know why I haven't really, you know, taken note of them. But, yeah, nah, that's OD, my nigga. That's what we doing. We stabbing motherfuckers and... I'm assuming scooping eyes out. I was gonna say, was it gouging, but I don't know. Whatever the case, hey, niggas is crazy, my nigga. Stay safe. Night. Remers.
Roughly 2 months after Mary's murder, another body was found. This time, it was clear that a serial predator was stalking Dallas. Early that Sunday morning, a passerby found the nude body of 27-year-old Susan Peterson along a roadside in southern Dallas County. She was found on the same quiet road where Mary Pratt's body had been dumped. Susan was one of the most well-known sex workers in Oak Cliff. She was described as a striking woman with a fierce reputation. Unlike Quiet Mary, Susan was known as bold and aggressive. She openly cursed at police and threatened other women who tried to encroach on her territory. Susan was also skilled at stealing money from clients during intercourse. Susan's body was taken away for an autopsy. It revealed merciless violence. She had been shot 3 times at close range. 1 bullet entered the top of her head, 1 in her chest, and another in the back of the head. Multiple bullet wounds suggested overkill, as if the killer wanted to ensure that she was dead. A large gunshot wound also disfigured Susan's left breast. And again, when the medical examiner lifted Susan's eyelids, the gruesome signature was confirmed. Her eyeballs had been carefully carved out of their sockets. Another woman had been murdered, with her eyes missing. Police leadership quickly called emergency meetings. They faced the chilling reality that a serial killer was now active in Dallas. Detective Westphalen described him as a repeater, someone certain to strike again. Whoever had done this, he had deliberately dumped the bodies in residential areas, ensuring that they would easily and quickly be found. Perhaps he was doing this to taunt law enforcement, or even to spread fear. Investigators debated just how much information should they release to the public. Some detectives believed withholding details would prevent spooking the killer into changing his methods. However, because the victims were in a certain profession, the police felt obliged to warn this specific community. Authorities issued a public alert informing local women about a murderer targeting women like them. Flyers appeared at motels and on streets urging women to remain vigilant or avoid working altogether. Which, of course, for some very vulnerable women, this was a big ask. The police withheld details about the missing eyes. However, information did leak to the press, and this killer was given the nickname the Eyeball Killer, and this soon spread amongst the media and the public. After these terrifying murders came to light, police went and spoke with local women who were in this profession, and these women no longer avoided the police. Instead, they crowded around the officers, desperate for protection and information. Some women gave officers lists of their most violent or suspicious clients, men who had enjoyed restraining or hurting them or doing unconsensual things. One woman named Veronica came forward. She approached officers with dramatic but inconsistent stories. Veronica claimed to have witnessed Mary Pratt's murder directly, but other times she said that a man bragged to her about killing Mary. Her descriptions of the attacker constantly changed. First he was white, then Hispanic, and then black. Officers who heard...
You know, I was gonna hold myself back, but here hoes go. Fucking, oh my gosh, dude. One thing I can't stand is a cloud fiend. Bitch, if you don't know shit, shut up. Damn, that shit is annoying as shit. You trying to fucking throw niggas off the case or something? Bitch, you working for the nigga? Rumors, I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, shit annoying.
Veronica's stories often dismissed her, believing drug addiction had made her confused and unreliable. Yet one detail Veronica mentioned remained oddly consistent.
I bet.
Veronica was once with a client in his car, parked down a side street. But the client wanted too much from her, and she wanted to leave. But the client wasn't willing to let her go. She was subsequently essayed, but luckily she managed to escape. According to her, she ran away from the attacker's car and into a nearby house where a man named Axton Schindler lived. A key piece of information you will need to remember.
My bad.
Police officers passed Veronica's tip about Axton Schindler to homicide investigators, but due to miscommunication or overload in the fast-moving investigation, the information never reached Detective Westphalen. As a result, the case still had no prime suspect. A promising lead was slipping away, and the unknown killer was already preparing to claim another victim. In the early hours of March 19th, 1991, he struck for a third time, changing his pattern just as police had feared. Shirley Williams was a 41-year-old woman working two difficult jobs. During the day, Shirley was employed as a maid, and at night, she occasionally resorted to selling her services around the motels of Oak Cliff to make ends meet. On the rainy night of the 18th of March, Shirley finished cleaning rooms at the Avalon Motel. She then slipped out into the streets of Oak Cliff, searching for clients. Another worker recalled seeing Shirley unsteady on her feet. She was wearing blue jeans and a yellow raincoat, and appeared to be under the influence of drugs. This was the last known sighting of Shirley alive. At 6:20 the next morning, a horrifying scene unfolded in a South Oak Cliff neighborhood. On a residential street curb, just half a block away from an elementary school, a passerby discovered Shirley's nude body laying against the pavement. School was set to start within minutes, and children would soon be passing by. The urgency of the situation intensified the police response. When homicide detectives arrived, they faced a grimly familiar sight. Like previous victims, Shirley had bruises on her face and a broken nose, and she had been shot at point-blank range. The fatal bullet had shattered her face and exited through the top of her skull. Despite the severe trauma, it was immediately clear that Shirley's killer had continued his signature practice. One officer at the scene carefully lifted Shirley's eyelids and found them to be empty. Her eyes had been removed exactly like the previous victims. Detective Westphalen was notified and quickly arrived on the scene. He noted that the killings were undeniably linked. This time, however, the killer appeared to have been rushed. During Shirley's autopsy, the medical examiner found a small but crucial piece of evidence. The tip of a razor-sharp X-Acto blade had broken off and embedded under the skin near one of Shirley's empty eye sockets. The removal of her eyes, though still precise, was notably less measured than before. This suggested that the killer may have had less time or was becoming frantic. After 3 murders in just 3 months and a 4th unsolved killing from years earlier, possibly connected, the city of Dallas was gripped by fear. News of the eyeball killer was spreading quickly. Those who worked in similar professions to the victims quit their jobs or left the city. The person responsible for these horrific murders just seemed to vanish into the night, and investigators couldn't catch a break. However, they didn't give up, and the restless work of a few dedicated officers was about to pay off.
Let's do it.
Finally, a breakthrough emerged. Officers who knew local S-workers well heard of a disturbing incident days before Shirley's murder. They spoke with Brenda White, a veteran of her industry, and she described a recent harrowing escape. Brenda explained that a few nights earlier, a man driving a dark station wagon pulled up alongside her, and she got into his car. The man she described had salt and pepper hair and wore cowboy boots with blue jeans. Brenda asked him to drive to a motel, but the man refused, saying that he knew a spot that he wanted to use. Brenda insisted that he drop her off immediately, as she never went anywhere with unfamiliar clients except motels. Suddenly, this man's demeanor changed. He shouted at Brenda and said that he hated people in her profession and intended to kill them all. Before he could grab her, Brenda sprayed mace right into his
Okay.
face, opened the door, and jumped from the moving car.
Yeah,
This story
Brenda.
haunted the police all day. They recalled every detail these
Tuck and
workers
roll.
had shared since the killings began. They kept returning to Veronica's inconsistent accounts of being SA'd. After hearing this other story the next morning, the police suggested that the investigation run a computer check on the man Veronica had mentioned, the man named Axton Schindler. Axton's address was found, but the property was owned by a man named Fred Albright. Confused by the unfamiliar name, the police continued typing. They discovered that Fred Albright owned another property in Cotton Valley, the neighborhood where the first two victims were dumped. But then they discovered that Fred Albright was dead. Then an officer spoke up, suggesting that the case involved another man named Charles Albright, the son of Fred. This officer recalled an earlier anonymous phone call from a woman claiming to have been friends with Mary Pratt. The woman said that Mary had introduced her to a man named Charles Albright. As it turned out, Axton rented a smaller dwelling to the rear of Charles's house, who was living in his deceased dad's house. Police began to speculate that perhaps Charles Albright was the person who had attacked Veronica, and so they rushed to review Charles's criminal record at the County Identification Division. They found multiple charges, including theft, burglary, forgery, and SA of a minor. The police believed that they may have found their killer, and so they went straight to Detective Westphalen. After hearing their theory and account, Westphalen quickly assembled a lineup of 6 mugshots, including Charles Albright's. Police then showed the lineup to Brenda White, who immediately identified Charles Albright as her attacker. They then showed the lineup to Veronica. When Veronica reached Charles Albright's photograph, she began shaking. She was visibly terrified. Veronica became too terrified to even cooperate, and she refused to identify anyone. So Westphalen demanded that they bring her downtown. In a small interrogation room, Westphalen confronted Veronica. She trembled and cried, unwilling to even look at the photographs. Westphalen then told Veronica about the 3 murdered women, describing how urgently the police needed her help to remove the killer from the streets. Slowly, Veronica examined the mugshots again. She finally reached out and turned over Charles Albright's photograph and signed her name. With this, the police were dispatched to Charles's home.
Hey, we on your ass, you bitchin' ass boy.
2:30 in the morning, on the 22nd of March 1991, tactical officers stormed the front door to Charles's home. Charles was quickly detained. As the police began to look around the property, they found it to be rather strange. The walls were covered with Life magazine covers and Marilyn Monroe movie posters. Charles remained silent as officers handcuffed him and led him away. Dixie Austin, his partner, began to break down. Confused, she began screaming, unable to comprehend what the man she loved had done. Dallas's notorious eyeball killer finally had a face and a name. But who was Charles Albright? Charles was born in Texas in 1933 and raised by adoptive parents in Dallas. His adoptive mother was strict and obsessively focused on her son's achievements. Under her guidance, Charles skipped 2 grades and displayed signs of gifted intelligence. But when Charles was 11, she enrolled him in a taxidermy course, guiding him through each step. He was given a small gun as a child, and he began shooting small rabbits and squirrels. His mother showed him how to use a scalpel to skin small animals, remove organs, and how to extract their eyeballs. Charles became fascinated by glass eyes, and he used them in his taxidermy. He would linger at the shop, staring at the artificial eyes, longing to collect them like marbles. When he was only 15, he slept with his first S-worker, contracting crabs at the same time. By 16, he had begun to steal. He was caught stealing $380 from a cash register along with some guns. By the 1950s, he was married, had a daughter, and briefly worked as a school science teacher. Yet beneath his outward normalcy, Charles engaged in forgery and petty crimes. He served a little bit of time in jail, but when he got out of prison, he maintained a likeable image among his friends and neighbours, many even trusting him to babysit their children. But one family would soon regret ever letting him near their child. In 1981, he was arrested for the SA of a neighbour's daughter. Charles pleaded guilty and received 10 years probation, avoiding jail time. In the late 1990s, around the time the killings began, he made a peculiar change to his routine.
Probation.
He took up a job delivering newspapers before dawn, waking up at 3 in the morning to drive his route. He told his partner that he just wanted the extra money, but this job provided the perfect cover to prowl the streets whilst she slept. His partner said she noted nothing suspicious, later insisting that Charles always returned promptly after his deliveries. In reality, Charles used these early morning hours to stalk vulnerable women in this area. His lifelong obsession with eyes, his surgical skill with a knife, and his ability to mask his true nature converged lethally. People who knew Charles but didn't know about his past couldn't reconcile the soft-spoken, church-going neighbour with the sadistic murderer he had become. However, they had to face this, as his trial would soon begin.
Making niggas look bad.
Charles Albright's murder trial began in Dallas in December of 1991, 9 months after his arrest. Prosecutors ultimately proceeded with only a single murder charge for Shirley Williams, dropping charges in the Pratt and Peterson cases due to insufficient evidence. Charles pleaded not guilty. The prosecution's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence. There were no eyewitnesses, no murder weapons, and they couldn't link Charles directly to the crime scenes. But here's what they did have. Brenda White and Veronica's testimonies. They came forward in court with their terrifying accounts of what happened to them, and they pointed to Charles.
There they go.
Also, near where Shirley Williams was killed, the police found a yellow raincoat and a blue blanket soaked in blood. On that very blanket, they found 6 hairs from Shirley Williams, but more importantly, they found 3 pubic hairs which belonged to Charles Albright. They also found a head hair on the raincoat that matched to him too. Blood, hairs from the victim and the suspect all in one place. Also inside Charles's home, they found taxidermy tools, X-Acto knives, photographs of women's eyeballs, and eyeball diagrams. This is circumstantial, but also undeniably strange. But there was more. Investigators vacuumed his truck and his house, and inside the vacuum, they found more hairs from Shirley Williams, along with hairs from the other victims, Mary and Susan. They also compared fibres from the blanket found in the field to fibres on 2 of the victims' bodies. They matched. Everything was pointing to Charles being the killer. The prosecution also highlighted the unique signature of the killings, the surgical removal of the victim's eyes. Meanwhile, the defense attorneys argued vigorously that the state lacked direct proof of guilt. They emphasized to jurors that no eyewitness placed.
I hate how the niggas gotta do their job. Like, I would be damned if I had to defend some fuck nigga. Motherfuckers I know is on bullshit. I would hate to have to do that as a fucking job. Man, that shit is weak as shit. The fuck out of here, man. Get this guy the fuck out of here. Remorse.
Charles with any victim on the night of the murders, and that the police never recovered the missing eyes nor the handgun used in the killings. The defense described the hair evidence as weak, arguing that the fibers proved to be nothing more than just circumstantial. The defense also attempted to introduce a different suspect, pointing to the mysterious Axton Schindler. Axton did live on the property linked to the crimes, and he had abruptly left town as the trial began. The defense suggested that Axton was the real killer. However, prosecutors countered this by noting that dozens of S-workers in the end identified Charles and not Axton.
Nigga?
Furthermore, nothing in Axton's history indicated that he possessed the skill to surgically remove human eyes. Charles, on the other hand,
arms like me,
did.
Nigga?
Charles Albright did not testify in his own defense. He sat quietly at the table with slumped shoulders and a neutral expression. On the 18th of December 1991, after deliberating for less than 1 day, the jurors found Charles Albright guilty of murdering Shirley Williams. Charles showed little reaction, as the judge sentenced him to
That was the
life
verdict.
imprisonment. Behind him, his loyal partner Dixie collapsed into tears. After the trial, Charles was sent to prison to serve his life sentence. He never confessed to the murders and maintained his innocence. Charles was only convicted for Shirley Williams' murder, although authorities believe he killed at least 3 women and possibly a 4th, Rhonda Bowie. However, this is still uncertain. Decades passed as Charles remained a quiet, elderly inmate. He appealed his conviction multiple times, but without success. In a final twist, modern forensic testing revisited key evidence. In 2019, nearly 30 years after the trial, hairs presented as critical proof were subjected to DNA analysis, and the results were startling. The hairs were not from a human, they came from a dog. This revelation cast uncertainty over forensic evidence that had sealed Charles's fate. It raised the possibility that an error had contributed to his lifelong imprisonment. Charles's defense had long felt uneasy, and some investigators now questioned if they had convicted the wrong man. Charles Albright died in prison on the 22nd of August 2020, aged 86. But before you suggest he was wrongfully imprisoned, there was other evidence linking him to the crime. And along with this circumstantial evidence, his attorney later reflected on Charles Albright's dual nature, describing him as fascinating, but leaving an uneasy, lasting impression. There was one memory that haunted his attorney. He recalled introducing his wife to Charles during the trial years, only to have Charles gaze at her and remark that she had beautiful eyes.
I don't know. Y'all should see this shit that's on me right now. Get this out of my sight. What is this about? Watch out, my nigga. Alright, we're off this. I don't know what the fuck niggas got going. Disturban, stop that shit. Oh, man. Y'all about that. Niggas about to have my feet looking nasty for the next who knows how long. Anyways, RP everybody, first and foremost. Mentioning her that's passed away. Niggas is over here trying to defend clowns. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. As if that nigga the fuck up. I don't care. Even if he didn't do those kills, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, we would want the right guy. If not, but, you know what I'm saying? He did other things, and he was pointed out for other things. So, you know what I'm saying? As long as they weren't lying, get the nigga the fuck out of here. I'm gonna be honest. You had me at the minor essay, like, zip this nigga the fuck up. Think I give a fuck, nigga. Even if he was, you know what I'm saying, innocent for the killings. Let's just say that was the case, alright? You would have had me off that shit, you know what I'm saying? Get this nigga the fuck out of here. The hell out of here, bucko. Getting defended for this nonsense. Niggas trying to pin it on the other dude. Nice try, buckaroos. Anyways, man. Shit crazy. Had nothing else to say, my nigga. RP to fallen. Anyways, man. Get into it, you know what I'm saying? Links in the description. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Y'all stay safe, you know what I'm saying? Be aware. And, yeah, man. This world is full of, a lot of, characters, to say the least. Okay? Y'all stay safe. Take it easy. Goodbye.